This is the first time the rolling road was ever set up with me in this configuration. It's got no panels on it, it's got some places there's no paint on it, and the ramps you can see are unpainted. This might be the first time in decades it's had a car on it. I was full of excitement and anticipation. Right, this is a very important test now. I'm going to test the brake. Certain people on Facebook have told me it wasn't going to work. If you haven't seen earlier videos in this project series, I rewound the coils on this rolling road to a different specification to suit my needs, so I could draw power through a 13 amp domestic socket. It took a lot of calculations, and there was some doubt about whether it would work, but I was pretty confident it was all correct, with help from those who've done things like this before. So this was quite a scary test, really. So much money's gone into this, and if I was incorrect, that would be a major problem. I know my car's around 250 to 300 horsepower, and I believe the brake should be able to hold at least 350 with the gear ratio I'm going to use. So I'm going to put the brake on maximum, put my foot to the floor, somewhere in the 3000 RPM region, so it's got a decent amount of torque. And if the engine can overcome the brake, then that person on Facebook was correct. And if the brake kills the engine, then the rewinding of the coils in a different manner was a great success. And thank you to everybody who helped me, and Justine particularly from your Dyno. So let's give it a go. I'll get it into fourth, floor it, and put the brake on. Fantastic. The brake is more powerful than the car. It can absorb more power than the car can give out. So I'm very pleased with that. That's about all I felt I could do in the village. I live in a small village without annoying the neighbours really too much. So I might have done a few more runs than that. But the rest of it, I have to go somewhere else because of the noise. Right, we've arrived at the industrial estate. There's the Scimitar, look. Waiting for its turn on the rolling road. It's a great location here because it's next to the motorway. I'm away from all the buildings, and I can't upset anyone with noise, and I'm right next to the motorway. So this is the reason for being here. It's not a noise sensitive area. The ramps are now painted, the machine is clad, the M5 motorway is just over that mound. At this point the rolling road is now calibrated, and I'll explain later in the video how I've done that, but it's now an accurate machine. .236 bhp, 219 foot-pounds. That's up from a 208, the standard MV6 engine, so nearly 30 horsepower with my modifications. I can't understate how good this felt, having this machine with my car, my rolling road, absolutely a realisation of a dream. Oh, it's brilliant. When I first got the Scimitar going, there was a moment when I ran the engine for the first time. Oh my god, that's cool! How good does it sound? There were no headers on it, there were blue flames coming out of the exhaust ports like this on each side, but like a Spitfire starting up or something. And I adjusted the timing, so I sat on my laptop, plugged in some numbers, advanced the timing, and those flames were like dancing out the ports like this. They got shorter. I just thought, this is so cool. So many different things are happening, and so many different disciplines of engineering and science. So yeah, that was a hell of a moment, getting that Scimitar on my own rolling road. So that really was a pretty major milestone for the project. There's more to come, but how did I come upon these numbers? How did that piece of software from Norway and hardware know that was 236 horsepower. Well, there's a bit of calibration that was done. So I'm going to go into a little bit about how I calibrated the rolling road now, starting with the load cell. You can see these discs either side rotate around the electromagnetic coils, which are powered by the power supply from Norway, your dyno. And this frame is what stops those coils from spinning. So when they're doing their thing and slowing the rolling road down, there's a great big torque trying to turn this set of coils that direction, and this is the thing which stops that from happening. That's the load cell there, and it measures the force. So that is measuring the torque. But that is an arbitrary piece of kit bought in from your dyno. It doesn't know anything about where it is, distance from here to here, or what it's attached to, so I have to calibrate it. So I use this calibration bar which I bolt into these two holes here, and I can hang weights off the end of it. So in order to set that up on the laptop and get it nice and accurate, I needed some weights that were very accurate. Well, it doesn't matter what their mass was, it matters exactly how much that mass was. So I took them an hour up the road to a weighing calibration outfit. We hit PBA scales. We've got the two 25 kilo masses on 100 kilo balance and the chain to hang it, and some very accurate equipment here. This can measure to within a gram, up to sort of 50 kilos, and then up to 10 grams, up to 100 kilos. So I've weighed them individually and weighed them together, and we're going to get certification, which will help make the rolling road highly accurate. So the next thing is to fit the calibration bar. You'll see me do that now, and then hang the weight off the end of that calibration bar, which I know is exactly 3 times longer than the distance from the pivot to the load cell. So whatever I hang off there, I'm going to multiply it by 3 times, and it's going to be 50 something ish grams. I've got it written down, and then also I've got to convert that to newtons, so it'll be times 9.81, and that will give me exactly the load that is on the load cell, and then tell the computer that that's the load on there, and then it is calibrated. Then I can do the same on the other side, hanging the weights on this side, and it should give the same sort of result. So it turns out it gave exactly the same measure in both directions. It's a nicely linear load cell from that respect. Save those files, and that's done. So with that done, you'll be interested to know I didn't actually use the brake for that rolling road power run for my Scimitar. So this just sits here dormant with this spinning away. The load cell's not actually doing anything, so the brake's not used at all. So you need the brake for more powerful cars to slow down that acceleration, and you need it for tuning. But you need it to set up the software so that it knows how heavy the rollers are. So if we forget rotation for a second, if there's a block, imagine a ton block of steel on an ice rink, I could push that along, slide it along the ice, and you could measure my power based on how quickly I can accelerate it. So it would take me a very long time to get it up to walking speed because it weighs a ton. It would take a car a lot less time to get it up to walking speed because it has a lot more power. So that is how you measure power. You just have to tell the measuring device how heavy the object is that's being accelerated. Same principle is here. Instead of pushing it along, it's rotating it. So not only is the mass important, but how far the mass is from the center of rotation. If these 1 ton of rollers were all on a shaft that big, a very long shaft, it would be very easy to accelerate them. But if they're in a huge flywheel, it would take a lot more effort to accelerate them. So it's called moment of inertia. It's to do with mass and distance from the center. So in order to find that, there's a procedure where you tell the brake to accelerate the engine. So I sit with my Scimitar, I didn't film this, but I sit with my Scimitar at full throttle and the brake, 4th gear, and the brake dictates the acceleration rate. So it lets, there's a little bit of braking force applied, it lets the engine rev over a 10-second period up to 6,000 revs, and then it holds it there for a few seconds, and then it drags the engine revs down. So the engine's still full throttle, the brake is now slowing the engine down, back down to 2,000 revs. So on the acceleration, the engine is having to fight the brake and the inertia of the rollers. On the deceleration, the inertia of the rollers is on the engine side. So now the brake is having to fight the engine and the inertia of the rollers. You overlay the torque curve of the car on the way up and on the way down, and the 2 lines should coincide when you've got the moment of inertia for the rollers set correctly. So you stick in an arbitrary number, do the run, and then you can reuse the data. I don't have to do the run over and over again. You can just rerun the data. So let's say I pick a number of 10 for the rollers. On the way up, I measure a torque of 800 foot-pounds. On the way down, I measure 100 foot-pounds. Well, the moment of inertia for the rollers is definitely wrong then, because it's not giving me the same data. So I do it again with 20, and now those 2 lines become closer and closer. So when I reach a point where the torque curve for the engine going up the revs matches, the lines literally overlay on the graph, matches the torque curve for the engine going down, that's when I know I've got the number for the moment of inertia correct. And then it's set up. So now I've got the torque measuring device set up, I've got the moment of inertia for the rollers set up, and now it can accurately measure the power and torque of different cars. There you go. More to come, folks. I know in the next video I take this to my friend's house where we have 6 or 7 cars on the rolling road. A load of testing work for their benefit and mine, really. Messing with their cars, a little bit of tuning as well, and me seeing the rolling road in action and checking things out and learning what I need to do next. Thanks for joining me, folks. I'm sorry it's been such a long time since I posted a video, but there's a few more in the pipeline for this project. This is so complicated. It's not complicated.